Friends, listen closely. What I'm about to say isn't a prediction. It's what's happening right now at this very moment while I'm here with you live local time 1:44. The 10th consecutive night of American attacks against Iran is happening right now. And look what comes in while I'm talking here with you. Reports of explosions in the city of Isfahan and in Shambaha with Iranian air defenses activated and on the other side of the Gulf. Kuwait has just announced that the Ali al-Salam base, a base used by the Americans, is under heavy fire from Iran at this very moment. In other words, it's the 10th night without skipping a single day, and it's all blowing up live right in front of you. But for you to understand the scale of what's happening now, I need to walk you through the whole day because this night didn't come out of nowhere. It's the end of a day full of moves from both sides, and each piece here is super important. So stay with me because I'm going to connect each one of these pieces. And today, Trump also wrote a sentence that changes little about the outcome of this story or this war. He spelled it out. Every time Iran kills an American soldier, it will pay a much heavier price. And he sent this order in writing to the US Secretary of Defense and to the entire military leadership. But then came the part that almost no one noticed either. On the same day, the same Trump shared a poll showing that the majority, most Americans, support a peace agreement with Iran. It's a threat on one side, a poll on the other, right? A peace poll on the other side. All of this on the same day, coming from the same man. It's the same on the Iranian side, just reversed. Reuters reported that the mediators put a proposal for a 10-day pause in attacks on the table, and the regime's media rushed to deny everything, saying that there is no such proposal. But the spokesperson for the Iranian government himself had already confirmed this days before, saying that the proposal had arrived and was under review. For those who remember, right, guys? That happened yesterday. I brought this to you as well. But someone here is lying, and I'm going to show you who and why. Pay close attention. Look at what I prepared for you in today's video. In today's live, local time is 1:46 on the 21st. Yes, here it's already the 21st. It's not the 20th anymore. We have a time zone difference from Brazil, and in Europe, it's already the 21st. Look at what I prepared for today. Guys, first, the retaliation order that Trump signed today and why it coexists with a peace proposal. Then the mystery of this 10-day pause that Iran denies during the day and examines at night. Next, a strange movement by the Iranian army on the ground, which could be a sign that the next phase of this confrontation will be on land. And to conclude, a measure that Kuwait has just announced once again. But that explains why you hardly see any of this in the media. Nothing. We practically have no images. We have absolutely, almost nothing, guys. Almost nothing really comes out of these countries. So stay with me until the end because the piece that connects everything is at the end. Straight from Israel, as always, straight from where everything happens. And before we break it down piece by piece, here's the framework of the day for you to understand this. Just one sentence, guys, the double game. So pay attention to this because it's the key to the whole video. Today, both sides of this conflict are playing with both hands at the same time. One hand shoots and the other negotiates. And neither of them admits out loud what the other hand is doing. Trump threatens and sends messages of peace. The regime denies the proposal and analyzes the proposal. And it's exactly in this double game that it's decided whether all of this is really going to catch fire or pause once again. They've already started talking about a pause again, folks. Just noting this, that the last time we started talking about a pause, there really was a pause in the war. But now, let's look at the American side, because Trump always talks tough. That's nothing new to anyone. The news today is what came along with that statement. And this threat wasn't just in his speech. Trump made a point of saying that the directive was officially passed on to the Secretary of War, Peter Hegseth, to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and to all the commanders of the American forces. And there was one more thing according to the American website Axios. Axios, remember Axios linked to Israeli journalist Barak Ravid? Trump ordered the army to prepare a retaliation against Iran soon for the deaths of American soldiers in Jordan. And the total number from this war went up again today. And let me make it clear, this number is for the entire war, from those 40 days back then and now too. Guys, is the video freezing for anyone? Give me some feedback, guys. Some people are saying the video is freezing, so give me some feedback. This number here is for the whole war, since it started back in February. There are already 17 American soldiers who have fallen, who died in the confrontation against Iran. 17, the number keeps growing. And with each new name added, it's like Trump's finger gets a little closer to the trigger. Guys, now hold on to that information and look at what Trump's other hand is doing on the same day. He shared a poll showing, pay attention, showing that the majority of Americans support a peace agreement with Iran. The man who just signed an order for retaliation made a point of showing the world that the American people want peace. We already knew that, right, guys? Most of them over there don't want the war to continue. Journalist Barak Ravid quoted an American source with a phrase that sums it all up. He said that Trump is focused on maintaining military pressure. The attacks continue until he decides otherwise. But at the same time, the talks between Washington and Tehran are still happening. In other words, there are real talks happening behind the scenes. It's not attacks or talks, it's attacks and talks, all at the same time. That's exactly what Trump himself warned about before. This time, the negotiation will happen under fire. You want to talk? No problem at all. But the war doesn't stop for a minute in the meantime. In other words, he actually adopted the Israeli policy, right? Because this is Israel's policy, guys, to negotiate under fire. That's how we negotiate around here. And probably Trump also adopted this Israeli tactic. And now let's get to the mystery of the day, which is on the Iranian side. In this same game, Reuters reported, citing a senior Iranian source, that the mediators proposed a 10-day pause in the attacks. The goal? To give both sides a breather to try to revive that agreement that died last week. And why is it important to bring this up to you folks? So you won't be surprised tomorrow morning by news that someone gave the order to stop the war and that we're back at the negotiating table. That's why it's important to understand this whole picture so you won't be caught off guard tomorrow by yet another sad piece of news saying that we're going to give up this time and keep negotiating. Hours later, the regime's media came out publicly to deny everything. They said there is no 10-day ceasefire proposal on the table and that the reports are false. Just making it clear and on record for you while we're talking here, the attacks are still going on in Bandar Abbas. Reports of explosions and attacks in Bandar Abbas right now, folks. Right at this moment, okay? So, local time again, it's 1:50, 1:51, and the war is still going on there in the Gulf. But there's an issue with denying that 10-day proposal. The Iranian government itself had already admitted through the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that the country received proposals from mediators yesterday and that they are being analyzed. Do you remember that? I talked about this in yesterday's live. This isn't new. The regime has already confessed. So notice the contradiction, right? They deny the specific 10-day proposal, but they've already admitted that the negotiation table exists. In other words, someone is talking to the American side. So, follow along with me. The source says the proposal exists. The spokesperson confirms proposals were received, while the regime's media denies all. Who's lying? Write it down in the comments. Who's lying? In my opinion, and it's my opinion, you can disagree here. No one is lying to you folks. They're lying to their own people. The denial is for the domestic audience. Because the regime can't admit in front of the population and even their own hardliners that they're sitting at a table considering a pause with those who eliminated their supreme leader. Admitting that is admitting failure and weakness, so they deny it. They deny it in the newspaper and truly analyze it behind closed doors, only with themselves there. And there's proof that the pressure inside is enormous. The president of Iran, Pezeshkian, gave a speech today that's almost a confession, the whole speech. He said that when a country decides to resist, it needs to accept the consequences and that you can't expect society not to face difficulties at a time like this. And then he spent the whole speech defending himself, swearing that he didn't back down from any of the 14 clauses of the agreement, that nothing there would benefit the Americans. And what does this mean, guys? When a president spends an entire speech justifying himself to his own people, explaining that he didn't betray them, that he didn't back down, that the difficulties are worth it, it's because the internal pressure has been building for a long time. People don't defend themselves against accusations that aren't made. Do you agree? If so, this video deserves your like, so hit the like button if you haven't already. Also, if you're not subscribed, subscribe and turn on notifications. This story changes by the minute, and it's the notification bell that will let you know, okay, if there's something new, and send it to that annoying friends group, that really annoying friend, that group of friends, work group, family group, okay? Because there are still people in Brazil or in Portugal who think this is over, that it ended a while ago, but it's not over, guys. Today, it's just beginning. Now the 10th night is starting. Right at this moment, by the end of this night, we're going to find out a lot of things, right? Tomorrow I'll bring you a summary of everything that happened overnight here in the region. There's also Israel's security apparatus. We're on alert because of this specific night, because of the targets that are being hit right now in Iran. Maybe Iran will decide to attack Israel, okay? So there's some tension here in Israel. Not very high, but there is some tension within the security systems, ready for any kind of attack coming from Iran towards Israel during this early morning. Because according to what we know, the United States will strike very hard today in Iran. And now, pay attention, because there's also movement on the ground that could change everything in the next few days. The American command has confirmed it. The 10th wave started at the end of this night, Iran time, around 11 o'clock to 11:50 p.m. Israel time, with the same stated goal as every day, to break the military capability that Iran uses against ships in the Strait of Hormuz. And that fire over there in Isfahan, the attacks in Isfahan, that are happening at this very moment that I mentioned to you at the beginning of the video. It's part of a huge change on the map. Because today the fire didn't just hit the edge of the strait, it went deeper. Along with Isfahan, a strong explosion also shook the city of Shiraz. And the air defense there was activated, or what's left of that air defense over there, after 10 straight nights of taking hits. And there are still people. Air defense still exists, okay? It hasn't been completely eliminated, it exists. They also received new weapons during this whole pause. They received them and regrouped, right? They reorganized. They received things from outside. Anyway, so there is still air defense over there. And the message behind today's targets, of course, guys, the fire is already reaching the big cities of Iran, deeper and deeper into the country. And it also started circulating among the channels tracking this minute by minute, that the next in line could be Tehran. I'm marking this here. This is speculation, but it could happen. No one is confirming that it will be. But it's the kind of rumor that only comes up when the pressure is really tightening. The United States is slowly ramping up. Guys, slowly the targets. Look, pay attention now to why this matters so much. Isfahan houses the key facilities of the Iranian nuclear program. And Shiraz is one of the largest cities in the country in the south central region. And check out this detail. Isfahan is one of the places that the Americans hadn't touched yet in this current round, okay? In this round, it hadn't been touched yet. In other words, today the fire went to a new place, to the heart of Iran. Not just on the edge there of the Strait of Hormuz. Let me put up the map so you can understand where Shiraz is, where Isfahan is. Just a second. Let me pull up the map here. This map here. Oops, I found it here. It took me a while to find the map. Done. Just a reminder, guys, the top 10, top 20, top 20. Okay? It's coming back again in August. I'll need each of your votes. Let's go for Brazil's top 10. For those who don't know, I'm already in the top 20. Many have been away from the channel, but I've reached the top 20. And in August, we'll be back again. Around August 7th, the voting will start again to move up to the top 10. I'm counting on your vote at iBest or iBest. Let's put it here now. Where is Isfahan? Just a second. Let me take this off. There. Look at this. The attacks in Shiraz. We had an attack in this region here. Here. This is the strait, right? Here is Bushehr, where there is that nuclear plant that was also hit in the previous 40-day war. There was also an attack in this region. Here is the city of Shiraz. This happened today, okay? Some American attacks happened here in the city, in the region of Isfahan. Up here, look, there were also attacks. This hadn't happened before. It had happened up here, right? Does everyone remember? Here in the region of Tabriz, there were also attacks yesterday, and probably today we'll see it again. Attacks in this region, alarms in Kuwait. Also today, just a little while ago, alarms went off there. Actually, several alarms went off today here in the Kuwait region. Let's look at the planes. Here are the planes. They turned off their transponders. Guys, the planes that were here in this part of the strait, they are turning off their transponders. They're talking here about several refueling planes. Several. More than 10 at this exact moment. But they turned everything off. And those who are far away keep it on. But those who are there up front turned everything off. This one is that intelligence plane. The E3E3B. It's been circling here for hours. This points to a very long night ahead in the region. I'll leave it here for a bit while we talk about what's happening now, at this exact moment. Pay close attention, everyone. In other words, the fire moved to this new place, okay? It moved to this new place, to the heart of Iran, as I already mentioned. Not just on the edge of the strait anymore, but what can really change the game isn't in the air, it's on the ground, away from the cameras. Residents of Khuzestan, remember Khuzestan, over there in the corner, near Kuwait, that province that's rich in oil, right next to Iraq. They are reporting intense movement of armored vehicles and Iranian army tanks in the region. They are starting to approach this Gulf region. Think about it with me for a second. Why would Iran move columns of tanks now with the entire sky controlled by the Americans, where a stationary tank becomes an easy target? There's only one answer that makes sense. They're positioning themselves for a ground defense. They're taking the possibility of a ground invasion seriously. And when both sides start preparing the ground, this story is escalating, not de escalating. Now, if it were me, I'd pull a trick. I'd let everyone think I was going to attack at that point and then take Tehran. But that's just me thinking to myself here. I'd pull a trick. I'd let all of them move down to that region, and then I'd go up to Tehran. But that's just me thinking to myself. Now look at what happened in the Gulf today, guys, because things have spread to a new place. Civil aviation. Civil aviation. In Bahrain, there were at least 5 separate barrages, up until the time this video was recorded. 2 in the morning, local time. 5 separate barrages in a single day. And the Civil Aviation Authority there made a very serious accusation. The Iranian drone attack also targeted the country's civil air navigation systems. The systems that guide passenger planes. This is not a military target. This is messing with the safety of those who fly, and the effect was immediate. Air France has suspended all flights to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates for the next 7 days. One of the biggest airlines in the world simply crossed 2 countries off its route map for a week. And at sea, another chapter. A ship crossing the Strait of Hormuz was hit by a projectile off the coast of Oman and caught fire. The crew abandoned the vessel and was rescued. And a Saudi oil tanker was also hit by a missile in the strait. In other words, the attacks in the Strait of Hormuz continue. And right after that, the Houthis from Yemen, Iran's proxy down south, here in the region down below. The Houthis are here in Sana'a, in this area. Look. So Iran's proxy, that Iranian proxy, announced a naval blockade against Saudi Arabia that starts immediately. In other words, the whole axis is moving. Any ship now that passes through this area around Saudi Arabia, the Gulf, the Red Sea, will be intercepted and hit by the Houthis from Yemen, okay? In other words, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait is starting to heat up. And there's also a detail that says a lot, guys. A Chinese air defense system has appeared in Bahrain, photographed and positioned. Chinese air defense, guys, in Bahrain. A system with 12 missiles designed to shoot down drones and cruise missiles. And here I need to remind you of what I told you yesterday about China, right? I always talk about China, actually. I told you that at the heart of this whole story, the name that almost no one mentions is Beijing. Well, there it is, guys. Once again, Beijing shows up without sending soldiers, without making any statements, without signing absolutely anything. China entered the Gulf picture quietly, selling protection to the same neighbor that the Americans protect. They profit from Iranian oil, also selling weapons to the Iranians on one side, and profit by selling shields against Iranian missiles on the other, playing both sides of the counter at the same time. This is China, folks. And Beijing should also become a bigger factor in the coming weeks, with more news appearing on this Middle East map, just like it happened now with this Chinese weaponry in Bahrain. The American Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, also made a statement supporting this. He said that the world has come to the conclusion that the Iranian regime wants to control the international straits and use them to blackmail the world. He called this completely illegal and unacceptable. And he warned, the United States will continue to protect global navigation, but other countries also need to do their part in this matter with operational and financial participation. And he also concluded by saying the following. Protecting the entire planet forever is not just the responsibility of the United States. And just a little while ago, Trump said that he spoke with the Prime Minister of England, and they came to the conclusion that they need to find a solution to remove the mines from the Strait of Hormuz. He just had a conversation with the new Prime Minister of England. Basically, Marco Rubio is saying that America is sending the bill. Europe, Asia, the Gulf, everyone who depends on that oil that passes through there will have to pay to keep those waters open. The days of acting as a free bodyguard are over. That's what he's saying. Marco Rubio. Will this really happen? And now let me show you the toughest measure of the day because it explains something you may have already wondered about. The government of Kuwait, folks, announced it again today, okay? This isn't news to longtime viewers. Anyone who publishes an image or video, no matter how small, of the Iranian attacks against Kuwait will be imprisoned immediately, without trial, for at least 10 years. 10 years in jail for posting a video. Look at that, folks. And over there, the law works, okay? That really happens there, folks. Did you understand now why you hardly see any of this in the media? Is it that there's hardly any? Or are you the one saying, but the images are repeated? There are images from today here, folks. I still managed to find a lot of images from today. From today, okay? There are updated images here from today. Few images exist, not because nothing's happening, but because filming or taking photos can get you arrested in the Gulf. And this measure isn't just in Kuwait, it's pretty much the same in the other Gulf Arab countries. And over there, it works. No one posts, no one films, no one shows where it landed. The entire Gulf is kept in the dark by decree. The countries take the hits and hide it so as not to spread panic and not to set an example. And that's exactly why I keep cross-checking sources in Hebrew, Arabic, Persian, and English to bring you what they forbid from circulating over there. And there are people in prison, just so you know. There are still people imprisoned from the 40-day war tourists, folks. Tourists who were there, recorded, posted, and got arrested. There are British and French people, and some are still imprisoned in the United Arab Emirates and Qatar. Someone is likely imprisoned in Kuwait, while in Israel the situation is the opposite, and sadly it's even worse. With every siren, with every piece of shrapnel that falls, the internet is flooded with photos and videos of the exact location where it landed, and that's a real security problem. Because when you show where the missile landed, you're giving the enemy exactly the information they need to correct their aim for the next shot. The army asks people not to film the impact site, but everyone does and ends up helping, for free, those who shouldn't be helped. Why is this important? You might say everything's on the map and he can hit exactly where he wants. Just look at the map, but the map is often not updated and the map can also be wrong. When you fire a missile, it doesn't land on the exact millimeter you're aiming for. It falls 10 meters this way, 10 meters that way. And this image of the impact helps him precisely adjust that targeting error, right? So that's why you should never record. And the law in the Gulf works. I think that's great. It has to be this way, guys. The world, people only understand this way. This way, you can't just let it slide. No. And on the Iranian rhetoric side, the hardliners spent the whole day barking too, very loudly. The president of the Iranian parliament mocked the Americans a lot. He said that they think Iranian intelligence is as weak as their IQ and that Iran has already learned to recognize the Americans' little games. And there's something here that's curious too, right? Even he noticed. Even they saw the double dealing. He complained very clearly that the Americans keep bringing new military equipment to the region every day while they say they want to stop the fighting. And he demanded that actions must confirm the statements and not contradict them. In other words, the regime itself is reading the board the same way I'm showing you here. The difference is that they do exactly the same thing. They deny the pause publicly and analyze the 10-day pause on paper. At this very moment, more attacks in Bandar Abbas. Guys, stay tuned because there's a war happening right now, guys. At this very moment, what just happened here, the United States asked Bulgaria for permission to use the airport in Bulgaria and station 10 American refueling planes at an air base in the southwest of Bulgaria to support the operation. In the Middle East, guys, Bulgaria, that means Tehran. Okay, Tehran, it means Tehran. If they're asking to use that base in Bulgaria, it means that attacks on Tehran may be on the way. The regime, guys, look. The army spokesperson declared that logic dictates continuing the fight until the enemy's will to attack is completely broken, and he issued a threat from the regime. Any country that cooperates with the Americans will have trouble getting their ships through the Strait of Hormuz. And the deputy foreign minister concluded by saying the following: Hormuz is decisive for Iran, and on this, there will be no concessions or easing. We will go all the way. Notice that. Only when you look at the full picture, the president justifying himself to the people, there President Pazekian, the mediators with a proposal on the table, and the hardliners shouting that the fight goes on until the end. It's the split I've been showing you for days, now wide open in just one day. For those who just arrived, folks, if you want to understand what's happening in the Middle East, you need to go back to the beginning of this live and watch it from the start. No, if you start now, you won't understand anything since you'll be jumping in halfway and won't know how it began. So go back and watch from the start. You'll leave here understanding everything about the Middle East in one video. First, the sirens went off again in Aqaba in Jordan. Remember Jordan? And explosions were heard once again in Eilat for the second day in a row. What used to be an isolated incident is becoming routine on our southern border. So much so that the local press revealed that the army leadership has already set up a specific defense plan for Eilat. And there's more, with American refueling planes occupying Ben Gurion Airport, here, the international airport. There's already talk about the risk of civilian flights being cancelled because there's no space, folks. The war is affecting the lives of people who live here, even without a single missile falling here. In other words, more alarms in Aqaba. Second, and this one is interesting, while the Iranian front is heating up, another front has taken a step towards calming down. The US State Department announced that tomorrow the pilot phase of the agreement between Israel and Lebanon will begin. The Lebanese army will take over from Israel. It will enter 3 villages in southern Lebanon. It was the result of that conversation that took place in Rome in recent days. In other words, on the same board, one front is cooling down while the other is heating up. That's how this region works. Let's see what the Lebanese army will be able to do with Reis and Bolato. Will they really remove them from there? Will they be able to do that? And there was also a message from Trump in defense of Netanyahu. Just to mention here, after the mayor of New York, Mandani, threatened to arrest the prime minister during a visit to the United States. The prime minister is going there for the UN event that's going to happen in the United States. Netanyahu needs to go there, and Trump responded by saying the following: Netanyahu will not be arrested under any circumstances because he is fighting against the regime that killed 52,000 innocent protesters and spent 47 years killing American soldiers. Who should be arrested, he said, are the leaders who led Iran into this spiral of death and ruin. Funny, right? That Trump is talking about 52,000. He's already said 38, then it went up to 45, and now it's 52. In the end, he'll reach the number that the opposition over there talks about, which is more than 80,000, more than 80,000. That's what they say over there, folks. That's what they say. More than 80,000 people. And Trump is slowly increasing the number. Just analyze Trump's speeches. You'll see 38, 45, and now it's already 52. Okay? 52. He's not just throwing out numbers. It's because he's being updated on what's happening over there. And now let's go to the reading of what's happening, the reading of the day, right, guys? Come along with me quickly. Trump signs the retaliation order and shares the peace poll. The regime denies the 10-day pause and analyzes the 10-day pause. The hardliners shout for total war, and the president asks the people for patience. Because of the situation, the attacks continue for the 10th night, and the talks are still happening behind the scenes, tanks moving in Khuzestan, and the mediator on the phone. This isn't a contradiction. This is double dealing, and it reveals something. Both sides already know this ends at the negotiating table. Every war, folks, it ends at a table. The real fight now is about who gets to that table standing and who gets there crawling. That's all it is. Trump wants to get there with Iran dismantled, without air defenses, without ports, with no cards left to play. The regime wants to get there before it collapses from within, and that's why it can't admit it wants to sit at the table. That's why they deny it during the day and analyze the proposals at night. And that's what this whole picture reveals, everything you saw today from both sides. Actually, it's a position at the table. It's the negotiation stance, each side stacking up advantages for when the real conversation happens. The fallen soldier, the ship that catches fire, the tank that moves, the peace pole that shows up there. Like Trump posted, everything is a bargaining chip before the negotiations. To really get started then, to wrap up, 3 points for you to keep an eye on. Before that, American attacks are expanding right now. Explosions. Once again, explosions in Isfahan and further toward the center of the country. The exact location hasn't been identified yet. Explosions in Isfahan and in the center of the country. I'm just going to make an observation here for those who follow Persian or Arab media when there are reports of explosions, because it's important for us to cross-check the information. A resident hears an explosion from one side of the city. Another resident heard it from the other side of the city. But it's actually the same explosion, a single attack, and it ends up being reported as 2 explosions when in fact it was just 1. Okay, so just for those of you who want to learn how to analyze and cross-check data, yeah, a lot of times that's what happens. One guy hears it from the south side, the other hears it from the north side, because you can hear a huge explosion like that, and then it seems like there are 2 explosions, but actually it's just 1 explosion and 2 people reporting the same explosion. So, to wrap up here, 3 points for you to keep an eye on in the next few hours. But what really matters, guys? First, the 10-day pause, which they're already talking about. They're already mentioning this 10-day pause. If it turns from rumor to official, you'll know the pragmatic side beat the hardliners. If it doesn't happen on the 10th night, it'll be the 11th. Tomorrow for sure. Escalation continues with rising oil prices. Watch this turning point. It humiliates the regime. Iran has already hit ships. Every day, folks, there's a ship being hit. They've already struck an oil tanker. They've done everything to strangle the Strait of Hormuz. The bet was very clear: to drive up the price of oil and scare the whole world to force the Americans to stop this war. But that's not happening. The barrel is still there, around $88. To Tehran's despair, the strongest weapon the regime had in its hands simply isn't working this time, so keep an eye on that number. There, as well. On the day it starts jumping above 100, the game could change. As long as it stays where it is. Iran is losing its biggest bet, which was its biggest weapon, the biggest weapon, which was the Strait of Hormuz. Look, that's it. An American source says that Israel might join the war against Iran if Trump decides to expand the operation. In other words, Tehran, 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 always Tehran, folks. Third, our southern border is Eilat and Aqaba is there at the southern tip of Israel. Second day of sirens. People who live in the region, when the alarm goes off, run to the shelter. Don't stand around arguing whether it's here or there. If you hear a distant alarm, which you can hear here, we hear alarms from nearby cities. If you hear Aqaba's alarm, that's Aqaba. And Eilat is the same thing. It's right next to the other. I've already shown the map here in other videos. It's very close. So people run to the shelter. Look at the difference here. Aqaba and then Eilat. Let me show you here. The siren went off here once again, guys. Aqaba is here, Eilat is here. And this is the border of Israel with Jordan. They're sharing the same sea, divided in the middle. Aqaba is on one side, where the siren sounded for the second time, and Eilat is on the other. So it went off here. Go to the shelter, because it can easily reach this area. It's easier than we think, you see? Look at the city here, guys. Look how close it is. If it went off on one side, it's going to go off on the other. Of course, the rest, for now, is just background noise, okay? Just background noise. I can't tell you if the next few days will bring a pause or an explosion. Nobody knows, honestly. Only Trump knows. Nobody knows, guys. Nobody. But I can tell you this. When both sides play a double game at the same time, any wrong card that falls can bring down the whole table. And that's why the next few nights are the most delicate so far. I'm here, straight from Israel's Judean mountains, tracking every move, flight, and decision as they happen in the coming hours. When the next piece falls, I'll return to explain it, putting the pieces together one by one. In a way the mainstream media never does for you, because a single headline, just one piece of news, never shows you the whole story. There's news that came out yesterday that contradicts today's, and if you don't put the two together, you'll be left in the dark without even realizing it. One newspaper published one statement, another published a different one. If you don't connect the dots, you end up believing a false story and being manipulated without realizing it. That's what I work against here, folks. So you can see the whole picture, not just the little piece they wanted to show you. So subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, share it, and send it to your family group. And let's finish, like we do every day here, with our little Hebrew lesson. Hold on, it's not over yet. There's still more, folks. Stick around, don't give up. Our little Hebrew lesson. Today's phrase is the following. Misra kaful. I even wrote it here. Look, Misra kaful, okay? That means double game in Hebrew. We use this a lot here in Israel. It's double game, folks. Misra kaful. Yemen just released another video now. Those videos made with artificial intelligence for... To say that the ban on close maritime navigation to Saudi Arabia has just come into effect at this exact moment. At 2:18, this naval blockade against Saudi Arabia has just come into effect. In other words, my friends, this is another war happening, okay? This is another war. Saudi Arabia and the Houthis, it's another war that's about to start. Or actually, it has already started. In fact, they went and one attacked the other. This could also spill over into our region because it's the Red Sea. It has to do with Israel, it has to do with Egypt as well, so it's another war starting here in the region. Thank you, Alan, for the super sticker. Thank you, Karen, for the super sticker. Casa Balaciano, thanks for the super sticker as well. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Let me see if I can read any comments here. Davi, try to go live with Fernando Benedetti. I don't know him, my friend. I don't know who he is, but I'll try to find out. I don't know. I hardly ever really watch channels in Brazil. The ones I can watch, I try to watch the channel from the other side. Okay, those who speak against everything that's happening here just to analyze the lies they tell over there, right? Some people present themselves as historians. I don't present myself as a historian, but there are people who do, right? History specialists. They say so many dumb things like getting dates and names wrong. I usually analyze the other channels, but I'll try to find out who owns that one too. And there are still Brazilian influencers spreading false propaganda that Islam is wonderful. These influencers they're criminals. That's right, Patricia. And that Iranian woman is always countering those influencers, those Muslim women who are talking. She made several videos responding to them. Very cool. And just to remind those of you who follow Shimon, Shimon from the Anunsim channel is also participating in Top 20 Brazil. Guys, you need to go there, support Shimon, and vote. He's in a different category from mine. He's in the category of a political influencer. That's probably his category. Just look for Shimon Anunsim. It's listed as Shimon or something similar, okay? I'll leave the link pinned here in the comments for you to vote for Shimon and give him a boost to reach first place and get into top 20 Brazil, right? Let's win this war here because the only ones competing with us are on the other side of the map. So our presence there is already a big victory. Being in this top 20 is already a big victory. I'm already there and now I ask you to give your support to our friend Shimon, all right? Friends, that's the latest news and I thank you all deeply. Your presence. I thank everyone who supports the channel in any way, leaving a like, sending pics, super stickers, super chat. You help a lot. I'm not sponsored by the Americans. I'm not sponsored by Israel, let alone by Qatar. You are my sponsor. You support this channel every day. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Hugs to all my friends and see you at the next live stream.